afternoon. My name is Ann Ball. I am a program director at Maine Development Foundation. And you are here today for one of our quick learning opportunities, municipal relationships and how to work with staff and elected officials. And we have a great set of partner pairs here to speak with you today. And I thought it would be really useful as we head into the local municipal budget season in 2022, that it would be a great time to talk about municipal and downtown organizations and their relationships. And I will ground this webinar in the 4 points of the Main Street approach. Okay, juggling a couple things on my desktop. First of all, I want to make sure that you guys know some of our sponsors that help us do our work. We couldn't do it without them. And a couple of notes, like I mentioned, we are in Zoom webinar, meaning you can't see us and we can't see you. You can see us, but we can't see you. We're recording this and you can make it available to your committees or your boards after the fact. We will send that out afterwards. If you have questions today, please use the chat feature, and the webinar will be 40 to 45 minutes. I always end on time. We're going to do an introduction of the topic and speakers, followed by Q&A, and then a quick wrap up. And the Main Street 4-point approach. As I said, I always ground everything we do in the Main Street 4-point approach, which is what our 23 local programs are implementing at the local level. And really, the 4 points are design, organization, promotion, and economic vitality. I would say that today's conversation probably mostly falls into organization. It's about partnerships and relationships between the municipality and those groups working on downtown revitalization, whether they are formal Main Streets or they informal citizen committees. But that is having a strong organization to lead the effort, and we feel like this relationship with elected and appointed officials at your municipality is really a key partner in getting this work done, as you will hear from our speakers today. And we have two, oh my gosh, Pat Hart, that's a terrible typo on this slide. Mary, wow, it's just all wrong. I think I'm just gonna stop sharing that. Great.
I look really accomplished, thank you.
No, I am sorry about that. Wow. So I'm going to introduce them without a slide so that you can really hear who they are. Mary Yasko was one of our first Main Street managers in the state when the program began, working with Main Street Bath for a number of years. And then after leaving the program, the city of Bath held a special election to fill a seat for a councilor, and Mary was encouraged to run, which she did, and she won the seat and remained on the Bath City Council for 14 years. And she became the first woman to chair the council in holding that position for 6 years. And throughout the years, Mary continued to be involved with the Main Street program as a board member, a volunteer, and even an interim director in my time at the Maine Downtown Center. So she has developed a deep understanding of municipal government and Bath throughout the state, as well as the Main Street program. And we are lucky to have her here today with us. And Pat Hart, Patricia Hart, AKA Pat, has years of experience conducting program evaluation and facilitating groups and writing grants. And I've been lucky enough to get to work with her in her professional hat. And she's well-versed in management consulting and evaluation design, and highly skilled at managing complex projects. She established Hart Consulting in Gardner in 1998. She's a proud and downtown business owner located right in downtown Gardner. And she is a long-standing business community member, and she volunteers in numerous capacities, but she is here today as the mayor, serving 4 terms on the city council and currently the mayor of Gardner. So we are really lucky to have Pat and Mary here today. And as you know, downtown revitalization is really built on public-private partnerships. The relationship between a Main Street or affiliate or a downtown committee and their municipality is one of the most significant. The relationship touches municipal staff, elected officials, volunteers, And it touches many offices within the municipality. In a larger community, they may have planning, codes, economic and community development, design review, or historic district designation, the libraries. And in very small towns, it touches the town manager or the town administrator. It's typically a fund organization. It is powerful, and it can make the entire community stronger. Can you guys still hear me?
We can. You froze for a minute there, but you're good now.
Anyway, such a great day. So the downtown organization can help the municipality be the frontline person for knowledge of downtown real estate, or the frontline person for where to refer people who want to start or located a business downtown. The downtown organization can be an advocate for historic preservation or a diverse economic mix downtown, and bringing people and events downtown. And the downtown organization is really the eyes and ears for the municipality, and is able to push out communication on behalf of the municipality. So it's a two-way street on many issues, including parking, sidewalk shoveling, other downtown nuisances or downtown ordinances. The bottom line is, it's a critical relationship for any community. And I thought it would be great today to have Pat and Mary each share a little bit from their perspectives in Bath and Gardner, and then we will open it up for questions in the chat. So I'm going to turn off my video, but I am still here due to my unstable internet. So Mary, you're going to go first.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you outlined all of those strengths that Main Streets bring to communities, because that is something that just needs to be said over and over again, and finding your own strengths in your community that you can be touting. Don't overdo it, but it's always, you got to keep that list going. And before I start, I don't think there are two municipalities in the state of Maine that are exactly the same. Bath is a city, Brunswick is a town. They're twice as big as we are. So there's no rhyme or reason. To keep things simple in my mind, I'm going to just refer to city. I'm going to say counselors instead of select person. So just in your head, if you could do that substitution, that would keep it simple for me. So the first thing that I wish that I had known as a manager was to do my homework with the city, and to really understand some of those agreements that was right in the beginning. So those agreements were pretty fresh, and I was being told that verbally. But some of these communities that are already established, these Main Street programs, find out what those agreements are. When I went back over and over again as the interim director, there were new agreements that were being made. Where are those written down? I still am not even sure on the Main Street for Bath. But understand what those agreements are. Sometimes they're just handshakes, and that can just be through a conversation with city staff. And I would also encourage you to find out, what if this is a program that you're looking to start, what are past concerns? Don't dwell on the past. There are definitely some situations that happened 20 years ago or 10 years ago that you just don't need to open that. You don't need to open that Pandora's box back up. But some of the more general things, what are some of the sticking issues that have happened in the past? And don't get into the gossip, don't get into any of that kind of thing, but understand what the history has been with any type of Main Street organization. A lot of us have started from business associations and morphed into Main Street programs. And this is one that I wish I had done. I wish I had understood the city budget, the city budgeting process. Ask to sit down with the finance director, somebody from your board, somebody, have your director do this. Figure out how that budget works, know when it's happening, where is that money coming from that supports your program. For a lot of these municipal budgets, they are coming, for Bath in particular, it's complicated. We have BIW, we have a TIF, we have all these kinds of things that are for economic development. So we have parts of the funding that comes from one bucket, but support for flowers might come from another bucket, and understand where all of those things are. Just so that you have that straight in your head, but it's also good to understand that there's a lot to that budget that those people are dealing with day in and day out. I think most importantly, what I would like to say, and Anne said it before, that this is really about relationships. This is really about people. I know as an elected official, I was pretty young when I first started, and I remember people treating me differently, or some counselors thinking that they had this new title and that they were superior to other people, or, maybe that's a harsh word, but you got to remember, these are just people. The staff, the elected officials, they have families, they have friends, they have trials and tribulations in their lives. They have a lot going on. These elected officials, maybe they get a stipend, maybe they don't. This elected position is just one thing in their lives. And while your Main Street program is a passion for you, as it should be, because what Main Streets can do for communities is amazing, you got to remember, it might not be their focus in their lives. So don't get your heart broken, but always try to remember that they have other things that they're juggling in their lives, and that they're juggling within their municipal positions. But always, keep what you're doing on top of their minds. What you're doing is bringing a lot of joy to a community, and that's hard to ignore. And I would also recommend making sure that you have a good relationship with the staff of your municipality. Get to know the city manager, town manager, understand where that person is coming from. You should always be trying to get a pulse on what people's impressions are of your organization. And we have an agreement that technically our Main Street program is supposed to come and report to the council once a year. And, you have 10 minutes to do it, but make sure that you're engaging those counselors. A lot of times these meetings are publicized. So how can you be making that impact? Maybe you're putting them on the spot and saying, how many of you came to an event last year, and getting a hand raise, or trying to engage them and saying, how much have you volunteered? Have you been shopping downtown? Or trying to get people to realize that these are the important things to the program, to get them engaged. It's shocking to me how many people, it doesn't even cross their minds to come downtown. And it's shocked me for almost 20 years now, because where else would you get it? If you can't get it at Rennie's, I don't know if you need it. And like Anne was saying, be sure to emphasize what your Main Street is doing for your organization. The city manager that I had the privilege of working with for over 10 years, Bill Giroux, he got it. He understood. He said over and over again, if this city were to try to take over what Main Street does, it would cost a fortune, and it would never have a heart. Because when you have people who are, Main Street's able to bring together citizens to volunteer, business owners to get involved, it's different when it's coming from people who are doing it because they want to do it. They're putting in that extra effort. It's a very different flavor if a municipality were to try to replicate the things that Main Streets are able to do. And it would cost a lot of money. And again, it wouldn't have the same soul. And I've seen this, it's hard. I've switched hats back and forth so many times as a Main Street person, but also as a taxpayer, as an elected official, and trying to keep that budget low. you got to remember, people are coming to these municipalities over and over again, asking for more funding, asking for this, asking for that. They're dealing with disgruntled citizens who don't like the snow plowing that's happening, that, the city is trying to figure out how to get the parks all taken care of and the sewer lines free of debris. Main Street is just a piece of it's a very important piece for a community. But remember, the municipality has so many balls that they're juggling at the same time. So keep that in mind. Keep yourself out there. Don't be overbearing. I've seen that too, where it's like, whoa, I got a lot going on right now. But I'll just wrap up with be grateful for healthy relationships that you have established and for funding that you've already been able to receive, and to keep, and if you have some broken relationships, see how you can fix that. And lastly, if you are going for an ask, try to get a taxpayer from the community to do that ask. I know that that's really hard when we have people from other communities who aren't paying taxes in the city asking us to do more. It's different when you do have a taxpayer who's coming and doing that ask. Directors are different, but if you're having a citizen come in, it is good for them to be a taxpayer. So I'd love to hear what Pat has to say, because I have a lot to learn always.
Thanks, Mary. Some great reminders. I love some of the basics that you said about understanding the city budget and the city budget process, and then all your discussion about relationships. I could not agree more. So lots more to digest there. If you have questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat and comments, and we will get back to those, but I'm going to turn it over to Pat.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mary. That was a great overview of how municipalities can work with the Main Street program. Before we started this morning, we were on a little practice session with Anne to make sure that we knew how this was all going to work. And we realized that the Gardner Main Street program started in 2003. We, along with Bath, were of the original 4 Main Street programs. So we're almost 20 years into this. And I know that different ones of you on the call today have different levels of experience or years of experience with the project, but I can just share a few things that really worked for us. I think being affiliated and having a Main Street program in the city of Gardner has been the most important thing for our economic development in this city. It accomplished 3 or 4 things, and some of them Mary has touched upon. It established a formal community partnership with the residences that live downtown and businesses and the community with the public municipality. So it's a quintessential public-private partnership. And that meant that suddenly the city that had been trying to do economic development kind of on its own, trying to ask people for input, but really didn't have the resources to do it. Suddenly we had this whole organization to turn to convene people, to actually be kind of a translator between the business community and the city, and also, the downtown residents. And having that translation and having Main Street be a formal, defined program really helped everybody move forward quickly. So you weren't arguing over what's the best way to do this. You had your 4 points. Back then it was different committees, but you have your 4 points, you have your good training from Main Street, you have organizational structure. That freed the Main Street program up to just launching into work. And they've been a tremendous help ever since. And it has been, as Mary said, it's a partnership. The city really, the municipality, the municipal entity really needs the Main Street entity to not only do economic development, but be the eyes and ears and the boots on the ground in the city. When you work in a municipality, mostly what you hear about is problems, as Mary said. There's trash cans need to be emptied, and there's a pothole, and why is my neighbor cutting down my tree? And, and they're always reacting, and they do a fantastic job. But it's so nice to have a Main Street forward-looking program work with the city to say, we think we're going to need this. It's looking like that. Can we work together and do this program? And specifically in Gardner, I sit on the Main Street board in an ex officio capacity, and I would recommend that to anybody. We have a counselor, also the council from this district. I'm in downtown Gardner right now. So the counselor from this district, downtown Gardner district, sits on as ex officio. And that helps us stay up to date. It also helps us share information back and forth informally. When you're in a council meeting and you're talking on the record, sometimes you want to be careful. And when we have informal conversations, we can get a lot more done. So I would say put your counselors right on your committee, even in ex officio capacities. And likewise, have your mayor, your counselors, your select board, put your Main Street members and volunteers on the municipal committees. And then there's that exchange back and forth, especially things like an ordinance review committee, or that's setting up ordinances, or something that somehow gives input to codes. On my list here, I've got public works, and as Anne said, the library is a really important city department, and economic development. We have our Main Street program actually built in as a seat in our economic development committee. They have to have a representative from Main Street. So I think those are the ways that you really build on what Mary said this morning, was build those relationships, formal and informal. Just engage in really good communication. Do it in writing so people have things to refer to. Be consistent, but also enjoy that informal communication and the fun that you can have working together. The Main Street program gives what I wrote down it's like a paint box. It gives the municipalities a little more context and ways that they can get to connect with the community that they wouldn't be able to if they didn't have the Main Street program. And the Main Street program needs the municipality, as Mary said, to fix parks, to manage the trash, to take care of the plowing and the things that all matter to businesses and the residents. But I would just counsel you all to play the long game. We're a heart and soul community, and the folks at the Orton Family Foundation say that a lot. They say play the long game, and I think that fits well with Main Street. We've been a Main Street community since 2003. I was a founding member, and it took a while to get the pieces and parts in place, but we are a well-oiled machine, able to get through anything together, really. We leaned on Main Street during the pandemic. We had our economic development director work closely with the Main Street director to put in the grants for PPE, to work with the businesses. If we hadn't had that investment over the many years, we wouldn't have been able to do that. So have some patience. You don't get everything. Everyone has ideas, and you all know they don't all happen overnight, and they certainly don't happen all at once. But plant the seeds, and it will certainly bear fruit down the road. The last thing I would say is be very active in your comprehensive plan development or implementation. I think that's the piece where you all have the eyes and ears and hearts and minds of what is usually the heart of a municipality, the downtown. And I think that's a key voice at the table when you're working on when the municipality is working on the comprehensive community plan. So I'm going to leave it at that. I know we have some time for questions, and I know Anne has some questions that she would like to pose to us.
Great. Thanks, Pat.
Yeah.
So many great reminders. I love thinking about the downtown organizations as being like a forward-thinking body that, isn't always complaining, like you said, which is largely what elected officials sometimes have to deal with, and staff. So that's kind of a really lovely piece of optimism. And Holly Gordon from Saco in the chat said, so many great points and very well said, instills a sense of pride after a full year of work. So it's always good to kick off some Q&A on that. Feel free to put your questions or comments in the chat. And there are none in there right now, so I'm going to throw out some that I thought of, which I would love to hear Pat and Mary's answer to. So wearing the role of both of you as elected officials for a minute, what is the most important thing that you and your fellow elected officials need from Main Street or affiliate or downtown organization? What's the most valuable piece of information that they can give you to do your job better?
I would say just keep those lines of communication going. Tell us what's going on. Tell us what you need in advance. Give us enough advance warning. I'm a little bit unique in that my office is right across the parking lot from City Hall, and the Gardner Main Street office is across the hallway here. So we're all really close together. So we get to communicate, and we're spoiled. But I would say you can't communicate it enough. It's very helpful. The worst thing is to surprise an elected body, because you've got, in our case, an 8-headed body to deal with, and that's hard for them to then do their job well. So the more you can inform them and keep them up to date with what you're doing and what your needs are, what you see the needs are, you'll help them do their job.
That's great. Mary, you have a thought on that?
It really is about communication. And my experience is that Main Street really is this conduit between the businesses in the city. It kind of creates this buffer or this safe zone. People have this idea that, a government is, but it's a little bit softer when it's coming from an organization. So I feel like one of my jobs, with hat switching all over the place, was to help communicate what was happening, boots on the ground, to the other counselors, so they were understanding that. And I don't know how that I asked Anne about this the other day, the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 in terms of funding, volunteer hours, and on the board in Bath, in our charter and on our founding documents, the city has 1/3 of the spaces on the Main Street board. And we always try, so there's always at least one city councilor, and sometimes the manager's on it, sometimes it's the assistant manager, but we always try to make sure there's 2 or 3 people, sometimes 4 people, who are directly from the city. But I like what Pat had said about Main Street people being on the city committees as well. That's going to take a citizen a lot of times. Sometimes there are rules around that, whether or not you're a citizen. But, one of the things too, I think that, and I don't know how much people are doing newsletters anymore, but I think a nice partnership that has morphed over the years. We used to actually do paper newsletters. Do you guys remember those things? And the city used to do them too. I think they're down to once a year, but Main Street always had a column there where they could help report out to the citizens. And it's I know that they're doing a digital one now. I think it's going to my spam. I should check that. I haven't seen one in a while. But see if you can have a column in information that the city is putting out, and then vice versa. If you put something out regularly, how can you let the city have a place in yours, so that you're both getting your information out, and you likely will have a lot of overlap, but you might be hitting different people, and it shows that there is that partnership.
Great. What are your, I'll go back to Pat first. In Gardner, Pat, what are some of the municipal priorities or concerns for the next 12 to 24 months when you think about Gardner, and do any of those thoughts touch Main Street?
Two years in, and I'm still forgetting to unmute. Sorry.
Okay. No problem.
Hiring and retaining staff, #1 priority. And how Main Street can help that is by just continuing to get the messages out there that Gardner's a great place, that municipal work is valued and important and service-oriented, very fulfilling. So that would be a big help there. We also have a looming crisis with emergency management services. So with the rescue and the shortage of EMTs, and also how some of the other services are starting to have so much trouble hiring people that they're not available. So those are the number one priorities. And I think that the Main Street can really help by being a cheerleader.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a bad, it's municipal jobs are really rewarding and there's training out there. And I think also just letting folks at the city know how valued they are by Main Street would go a really long way. And it does go a long way and people do that. And it's really important. I think that same goes for council. You know, we're paid whatever, $1,000 a year. We've worked, I don't know, we've had probably triple the meetings that we've ever had. And so when we just hear complaints, it is really nice when Main Street will put out a post saying, yay, they approved our budget, we're grateful, or thank you for balancing all your competing needs and seeing the, you know, those kinds of things go a long way. Please don't underestimate that, especially now when it can be pretty ugly at times in public meetings.
That's a great answer. And I also know in Gardner, you had mentioned encouraging participation in the comp plan process. And Gardner just completed a downtown plan funded by Coastal Communities program, if I'm saying the funding right, which is pretty amazing to have such a thing. Communities are required to have current downtown plans if they want to apply for CDBG funding. They can't be older than 10 years old, I think. So obviously a community undertaking a downtown plan and that requiring a huge participation from the downtown organization as well.
Yeah, Main Street did a lot with that. In fact, they really led the community input steps on that. They had surveys and we had an in-person socially distanced event in July that we had, I think, more than 70 people attend. Wow. It was a really great partnership there. That worked out really well. Yeah. And now we have a plan.
Right.
We have a plan.
Mary, do you want to add anything of thinking about Bath's priorities for the next 12 to 24 months? I feel like it's interesting. I mean, gardeners are so necessary, right? Staff, municipal staff and emergency management staff, pretty critical needs. But I like, Pat, how you showed how Main Street can support that.
I think that, you know, I don't know, I think we're okay on staffing at this point, but it's overall just a challenge. There probably are some struggles I don't really know about, although I still hang out with department heads because I get fire hose I can make stuff out of. That's my new life, is sewing trash. I know that Bath is wrapping up a long overdue revamp of our comprehensive plan. And, you know, I'm a year out on things. I kind of took a step back to help take care of my mom who has dementia. So I've sort of removed myself because 14 years of complaints is very grating on one's self-being. And so the you know, we have a lot going on with our downtown. There's a huge restructuring of commercial street that will be happening. I mean, I don't know how much people are following what's happened in Bath, but we had, 75% of our buildings were owned by one entity. And then the last 4 years, they've all been sold. That's an enormous challenge. And I think that as we go through comp plans, as we go through all of these things, one of the things we really need to be thinking about, a lot of us are in rivers. Every plan that we make should be looking at the water levels rising. And that was something that I felt like a broken record trying to talk to the city about. And I think Main Street needs to keep that in mind, that the climates are changing. We need to be thinking about how that's going to be impacting our downtowns with flooding. You know, Mother Nature's going to take back over where we filled in at one point in Bath, and Water Street was named Water Street for a reason. And I think it's going to come back. So that's a really major piece. But I do want to echo that anytime my mother taught me to write thank you notes. And that's what we do in our family. You write that. When you know that somebody's done a great job, if they've done a great job plowing, if they've done a great job with helping with a festival, EMT, PM, public works, whoever it is, write a thank you note, send a pizza, get a dozen donuts. You have no idea how far that goes. Even if they don't all get a donut, they know that you're recognizing them, and that goes a really long way. It's something I started doing as the chair of the council during major snowstorms, and it went well, and it's continued on from there. So saying thank you is always important.
That's great. Thanks, Mary, for those great ideas. We have a question in the chat, which is probably geared towards me. It's from Cumberland staff. How do we start? We've had limited success with meetings and surveys, trying to pull businesses into a meeting and trying to develop a core group. Our small business owners all too busy to come to meetings. I will say, in answer to Bill's question, that most of our main streets and our affiliates have started because of potentially a local crisis or issue. Usually they are founded in an issue. So one of our affiliates, Friends of Woodford's Corner, started because they wanted to clean up the railroad tracks. That was how they brought people together. And all of these organizations have started through kind of public-private needs. Sometimes it's about putting up decorations for the holidays. It's two groups that are like, oh, we could do this together. And maybe the municipality and the business owners, do it together. So I think that's the basis. But Bill, I would be happy to have you reach out to me. I receive inquiries weekly from communities that are interested in this program and how to get started, and I would be happy to meet with your crew. Another thing that I have thought about is that the Main Streets organizations and the affiliates, they work, as I said, with Pat mentioned public works and economic development and codes. I'm also going to add Parks and Rec. I've been invited to speak at the statewide Park and Recreation Conference in March, and really talking about another creative partnership. And that can include, the open space guide, or partnering on trail connectivity or farmers markets downtowns. Our Parks and Recs departments around the state all have different roles and responsibilities, but it's another really logical partner to kind of bring into that municipal umbrella, if you will. And I think we have time for one more question. Let me just double check if there's anything in the chat. I guess I would like to let me see. There's a question that I want to reach. Can you give an example of the sorts of things that businesses come to you with, which you would then approach the city with? Okay, let me think about that.
Trash is all we talk about in Gardner.
Trash and parking.
Trash and parking.
Those
are the big ones.
Those are
we don't have municipal trash collection. So the employees have to pick up the trash that is in the downtown. And when you don't have enough employees to pick up the trash, then you have more trash.
Right.
And when you have more takeout, you have more trash, right? Everybody learned that during the last 2 years.
That's true, Pat.
It's nuts and bolts stuff. It's all nuts and it's important.
Absolutely, it is. And from the city of Bangor, a good reminder that your municipality may have committees that deal with some of these issues, like parking. So stay informed about the other committees and their meetings. Yep, and our Main Street directors cannot be everywhere at any time, and so they have to rely on their boards to help, maybe attend a meeting on their behalf. And also from the city of Bangor, public safety staffing will get more challenging as the National Guard has been activated, as many of them have day jobs in police and fire. At least here, we're bracing for that impact. And sorry, Christy, I had missed your question in the chat. I saw it in the Q&A. So to wrap up, I guess I would like to think, and you don't have to say yes, Mary and Pat, but I really want your honest answer, and I want you to think about it. with you and your other elected officials. Do you think your municipalities see the value of the downtown organization? Is it a trusted partner? Is it worth the financial investment? Both of your municipalities actually support your Main Street organizations, which they should, and is wonderful.
Absolutely. I think we've been at it 20 years, and it's been consistently funded through 20 years during recessions, during pandemics, during everything. The community has come to rely on Gardner Main Street. And in fact, I know that sometimes the Main Street folks don't like it, but the people in town think, or in the city think, they see them as part of the same entity. I don't know how to describe it, but, and I know Main Street's separate and the city's separate, but they work so closely together that everybody sees it as one unit pulling for all of us. So it's absolutely supported and has made a huge difference for attracting businesses, attracting new people, and keeping people in the city.
Great.
Yeah, we definitely, we've been voting with our dollars for 20 years now, which is a big deal.
Yeah, no, it is. Mary?
We've been getting funded for 20 years. I know I worked with a counselor who seemed very confused about the original agreement. So that's why I said, make sure you understand what those agreements are. I would say the only time that there are rubs are when there's personality conflicts. And, that's a real thing. But overall, I would say the people of Bath understand what Main Street Bath is bringing to the community. And there's great support for all of that. Therefore, any elected official, I've never seen anyone balk at funding. Right. And I sit in those meetings. Now that funding does come from a different bucket. It's not coming from the general fund. So it's a little bit different for us, but it's hard to dispute that Main Street does so much for our community, and it has for a long time.
And just as a reminder to everybody here today, it is pretty typical that municipalities fund a third of the operating budget of the main streets, and then a third comes from the downtown businesses, and the third comes from residents and grant sources together.